Dragon, Episode 10, we saw a very interesting scene unlike anything we've seen before in this show, or even in Game of Thrones. Daemon Targaryen made his way into the deep, dark caverns of Dragonstone, singing a gentle melody into the darkness. He entered the blackness of an open cave, singing his lullaby, and soon we saw who exactly he was singing to. A blast of flame erupted in the dark, and a massive dragon responded to Daemon's song. But what gentle words did Daemon lure this beast in with, and what is his goal? When the Blacks learn of the Hightower's treachery, this sends a ripple of anguish through Dragonstone. Rhaenyra is sent into early labor and struggles through the unnatural pain of her malformed child coming forth. Her husband Damon, though, is filled with fire and immediately begins making plans to bring fire and blood to King's Landing. Daemon has a very strong connection with his dragon Caraxes. The two have fought many battles together and have rained fire on their enemies, taking joy in their screams of agony. Daemon was pissed that Rhaenys didn't just in King's Landing when she had the chance, but it was not her war to start, especially without the consent of her lord husband Corlys Velaryon. But Daemon was enraged that his cousin did not show her true colors as a dragon when she had them all right at her reach. He has a point. It would have saved a lot of trouble. But again, not her war to start. Rhaenyra ends up losing their baby, who, in the book Fire and Blood, is described as twisted and malformed, with a hole in her chest where her heart should have been, and a stubby, scaled tail. They name the baby Visenya, after Aegon the Conqueror's wife, and burn her body on their sacred ancestral altar, the same place Daemon and Rhaenyra were wed. Daemon looks lost, hardly able to look at Rhaenyra, feeling helpless once again as another of his wives brings forth one of his monstrous children. During the funeral, Sir Eric Cargill arrives on Dragonstone and presents Queen Rhaenyra with her father's golden crown. Daemon takes it from the Kingsguard Knight, staring at the three-headed dragon emblem of their house emblazoned on the front, reminding himself of his true mission, to recreate the three heads of the dragon like Aegon the Conqueror himself. This empowers not only Rhaenyra, but Daemon as well. He remembers his true calling and his dedication to his family. Daemon has been making efforts to recreate this symbol all throughout Season 1 of House of the Dragon. He has married 3 times. 2 of his wives have had 3 children, but their third child comes forth as a monstrous birth. In the book Fire and Blood, Laena's third child is born monstrous and twisted, like Rhaenyra's third child as well. Laena struggles to get out to her dragon Vhagar, but collapses and dies along the way. Now, Laena and Daemon were married for over 10 years, and the couple traveled all over Essos together during their marriage, from Pentos to Volantis, and they were even rumored to fly to Valyria. Daemon spent a lot of time studying ancient and rare texts that were likely not available in Westeros and potentially contained unknown parts of Valyrian history. According to the Rogue Prince, it was while living in Pentos that Laena gave birth to their twin daughters, Baela and Rhaena. When the girls were 6 months old, Laena sailed back to Driftmark while Daemon flew ahead with their dragons, Caraxes and Vhagar. Let me read that quote one more time. When they were half a year old, the girls and their mother sailed to Driftmark, whilst Daemon flew ahead with both dragons. This seems like a passing quote, but there's something here that contradicts everything that we've been taught about dragons. Dragons can live to be ancient creatures, hundreds of years old, so a dragon can have more than one rider, but a dragon rider has never had more than one dragon. But according to this passage, Daemon has controlled not just one, but 2 dragons. And this was no ordinary dragon, but the oldest and largest one alive, Vhagar. And just a heads up, this video will contain spoilers for the future of House of the Dragon from the books Fire and Blood and The Rogue Prince by George R.R. Martin. So let's talk a bit more about the 3-headed dragon of House Targaryen. Aegon the Conqueror and his 2 sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys, conquered Westeros with their 3 dragons, Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes. The people of Westeros had never seen dragons before, so it was fairly easy to conquer the continent. Only once did all 3 dragons fly into battle, and that was called the Field of Fire, where 4,000 men died that day. But even on this fateful day, all 3 dragons had their own individual riders. As we learn in House of the Dragon, Aegon had a dream of the long night, the coming darkness from the north, and believed the only way to save the world was with their dragons. The sacred knowledge of this dream became known as the Song of Ice and Fire, and is bound to the dagger that Viserys carried close to him, passed down through the ages with the knowledge of Aegon's song. The Targaryens are the last dragon riders in the known world, so their blood and their connection with their dragons is something precious. Aegon married his 2 sisters out of duty, which is another symbol of the Targaryens cemented into the minds of the people and their family lineage. Their connection to their dragons descended from ancient Valyrian blood magic, which bound their lineage to their dragons. If the blood is thinned, their connection to these beasts weakens. The image of Aegon and his sister wives is something even more clear to the memory of his legacy: 3 heads of the dragon. Prophecy and memory can be lost to the ages, just as Aegon's dagger could be, as we learn later in Game of Thrones. But the idea of a king who marries not only 1 but 2 of his sisters is something so unique that it cannot be forgotten. Daemon realizes the power of this image, which is why he tried to marry Rhaenyra and keep the Targaryen trinity strong in King's Landing, close to his brother. The king, the queen, or princess, and the warrior. This is another part of Aegon's legacy, his Song of Ice and Fire. Since Daemon was denied marrying Rhaenyra, he next went for the woman who mounts the oldest and largest dragon around, Laena Velaryon. The Velaryons were not dragon riders originally, though they have the blood of old Valyria. They have intermarried with the Targaryens throughout history and have gained the dragon riding gene into their bloodline. The Velaryons are vassals to the Targaryens, so this shared trait is controlled in a sense, but intermarrying with other families has been pretty taboo for this reason. If the Targaryens intermarry with other families, they risk sharing the dragon riding gene with others, who could then rise against the Targaryen kings with their own dragons, just as the Hightowers have done. So Laena and Vhagar, and Damon and Caraxes have spent their years flying together and visiting places where ancient knowledge of dragon riders, the Valyrian religion, and Valyrian history lie collecting dust on shelves. And when they leave Essos, Laena is on a ship with her children, and Damon flying both of their dragons back to Driftmark. Damon has already achieved something here that is unheard of as far as we know it. Damon obviously learned some very valuable information during his time in Essos, which gave him knowledge on how to control or command more than one dragon. Viserys had Aegon's dream, which gave him a vision of the future, but Damon is a man of action and not one to get lost in dreams and portents. He intends to learn everything he can about ancient Valyrian power. He's determined to keep their dragons strong and the Targaryens' connection to them as pure as possible. There is something to the number 3 here, the 3 heads of the dragon, and Damon seems to be on the right path to figuring it all out. But when Laena tries to give birth to their 3rd child, she only brings forth a monstrous child which kills her. Damon tries again, thinking perhaps he needs the pure blood of his niece to complete the magical recipe, like Aegon and his sisters. But again, the birth of Damon and Rhaenyra's 3rd child only brings forth a malformed baby. So Damon is forced to change his plans. When he sees the 3 heads of the dragon on his late brother's crown, he knows there must be a new course of action. When Rhaenyra's council meets, Damon brings up the fact that they have 13 dragons compared to the Hightowers' 4. Rhaenyra's sons each have a dragon. Baela has Moondancer, Damon has Caraxes, and Rhaenys has Meleys, and Rhaenyra has her own dragon, Syrax. There are unclaimed dragons like Seasmoke, Vermithor, and Silverwing, and 3 wild dragons.
And who is to ride them?
Damon also has a dozen eggs incubating on the Dragon Mont. We saw him collecting eggs from a clutch that Syrax had laid back in episode 8. We see Damon has been working tirelessly to collect as many eggs as he can, and in the volcanic passages of Dragonstone, the dragons and eggs grow more successfully and happily than in the Dragon Pit in King's Landing. Damon's new goal is clear. He's going to tap into the ancient Valyrian knowledge he's collected over the years, and just like he's done with Vhagar in the past, he's going to command some of these unclaimed dragons, starting with Vermithor and Silverwing. Vermithor is the second largest dragon alive after Vhagar. He was formerly ridden by the old King Jaehaerys, and Silverwing was ridden by his wife, the good Queen Alysanne. Damon enters the darkness of the caverns of Dragonmont, which are more well-defined passages for the ancient royal dragons. Damon sings a low song in the tongue of the High Valyrians, those who claimed dragons and bound them to their bloodline. Here's the translation of what he sings. But before we jump into it, if you're watching just for the translation, just know we haven't even got to the most interesting part of all of this yet, so stick around until the end of the video. Now here is Damon's song translated. Fire breather, winged leader, but two heads to a third sing. From my voice the fires have spoken, and the price has been paid. With blood magic, with words of flame, with clear eyes, to bind the three to you I sing. As one we gather, and with three heads we shall fly as we were destined, beautifully, freely. So now we know Damon is setting up some huge plans. He is trying to bind Vermithor to himself and call forth the old Targaryen dragon for the coming battles. The price has been paid with blood magic, which clearly connects to baby Visenya, who died coming forth from the womb. Damon has paid the price, like Daenerys pays with her child Rhaego, and he asks the dragons to bind as three, Caraxes, Vermithor, and Silverwing, to fly together as they were destined. Damon lulls Vermithor forth, igniting his old flames to light up the cave where he and his queen dwell together in darkness. It is said they were seen coiled together often. So, will these ancient dragons fly forth under Damon's command? Vermithor and Damon gaze into each other's eyes, and Damon dares not look away. We may be witnessing a form of dragon bonding in this scene of lingering eye contact. It's a game of chicken. Who will look away first? In Fire and Blood, Vermithor and Silverwing are ridden by a couple of bad dragon seeds. The dragon seeds were something that Lucerys actually came up with, and after the cross interactions between Rhaenyra's husband and her heir, we have to wonder if Lucerys does this in an effort to limit Damon's power, despite the awe of what he could be capable of. Does jealousy ultimately tear apart Team Black when stepfather and son cannot reconcile their dragon swinging contests to maintain support for their queen? And now we must take another look at the scene between Aemond and Lucerys, who fuck around and find out on a stormy day over Shipbreaker Bay. The two young men have a confrontation in Lord Boros Baratheon's court, and Lucerys is dismissed into the terrible weather. By the way, screw you, Boros, you illiterate traitor. Aemond follows Lucerys and gets on his own dragon, the fearsome Vhagar. So the night that Aemond claimed Vhagar was the same night that Lucerys took Aemond's eye, so there's a debt to be paid. Aemond wants Luke's eye and chases his nephew and his smaller dragon around the skies on his massive dragon. Aemond's laughs echo in the air, and eventually Luke briefly loses control of Arax, who blasts Vhagar with a gout of flame. Now this is where it gets interesting. Aemond then loses control of Vhagar, who vengefully follows the much smaller dragon up into the sky and smashes them to smithereens above the clouds, killing both dragon and rider. Throughout those last moments of Luke's life, Aemond screams for Vhagar to stop and to serve him. So it would seem that Aemond never intended to kill Luke, just chase him around and scare him, and then give up after a bit. I'm sure if given the opportunity, he may have taken Luke's eye, but we don't know. All we do know is that Aemond lost control of his old dragon Vhagar, and now the dance begins. Daemon exacts retribution on Aemond for killing Luke in several ways. He focuses specifically on Aemond, cutting off the snake at its head. It's clear that Aemond is the warrior of the Greens in the way that Daemon is for the Blacks. They are a reflection of one another, but Daemon is older and far more experienced. He recognizes the fumbles that Aemond is making, and Daemon has some advantages. Daemon knows 3 things: the songs of dragons, how to command more than one dragon, and he knows Vhagar and has commanded her before. We've seen that Aemon does not have full control over Vhagar. In fact, it may be that no one has control over Vhagar, and in that there is a poetic message of the power of an ancient Dracaena named after the dragon gods of old Valyria, and one who cannot be conquered by any man. Vhagar is the oldest and largest dragon alive. She lived through Aegon's conquest, born in the heat of Dragonstone after the Doom. She has had many riders, Visenya, Balon the Brave, Laena Velaryon, and Aemond One-Eye. She has to have a sense of autonomy at her age with all that she's seen and all the riders she's bonded to. She has traveled all over Westeros and Essos, potentially even having seen the remnants of the Doom of Valyria, if the rumors are true. But one thing we do know is that once upon a time, Vhagar was under the control of Daemon Targaryen while traveling all the way over the Narrow Sea without her rider present. So what I'm suggesting may happen in the future of this story is when the time comes for Aemond and Daemon to face off above the magical God's Eye, that perhaps, just like we've seen with Aemond and Lucerys, that Aemond may lose control of Vhagar, only this time it could be to another rider. Daemon may take command of Vhagar, and we cannot forget all the time that Daemon and Vhagar have spent together with his wife Laena. The idea of Caraxes and Vhagar facing off after spending so many beautiful days dancing over the seas of Pentos is simply heartbreaking. We spend a lot of time thinking of other dragons dancing over battles in this story, but the dance here is one that truly cuts as deep as Daemon with Dark's sister. We also cannot forget that Daemon's sacrifice to the fires in order to gain this ability came with the death of his baby, Visenya, who bore the name of Vhagar's first rider, Visenya the Conqueror. Though it all ends in tragedy, it's very clear that Daemon has gained some unique knowledge that, despite Aemon's best efforts to utilize the massive power of dragonfire, he may learn that true strength lies within the sacred knowledge that connects them to their dragons to begin with. The dragon and serpent represent divine wisdom and sacred knowledge in real-world mythology, and this seems to cross over to the histories of the Valyrians as well. Daemon possesses knowledge that ultimately gains him power over the muscle of the largest dragon, while Viserys and Rhaenyra bear the ancient knowledge of Aegon's Song of Ice and Fire. There is power in knowledge, and the real question here is whether or not Daemon actually held the knowledge of Aegon's song, or if he dismissed it as one of Viserys' dreams and portents that controlled his life. There was a recent interview in which Paddy Considine reveals that in a deleted scene, Viserys tries to tell Daemon of Aegon's prophecy. He says, "There was a scene that was deleted after Emma died, where Viserys meets with Daemon and tries to hint at this idea of prophecies and what the gods mean to him. He was trying to get some idea of where Daemon's at with his beliefs, but the tone of the scene was never quite right. There's no way that Daemon would ever connect with that. He'd laugh Viserys out of the room. He's not into dreamers or things like that." In his younger years, Daemon was a man of action and a true dragon warrior. But with age comes wisdom and perhaps the search for healing powers, ancestral wisdom, and even the old Valyrian religion, said to still be practiced behind the black walls of old Volantis, has brought Daemon more of a gift than he yet even knows. He may just accomplish things that no other Targaryen has yet, and may not again, until the days of Daenerys Stormborn herself, the command of 3 dragons. Aegon's song was a dream of ice and fire, but Daemon's song is a war cry of fire and blood. But what do you all think? Will Daemon lead multiple dragons, unlike any other dragon rider in the past? Do you find there is some huge meaning behind the fact that Aemond has lost control of Vhagar, and now we know that Daemon has once had control of Vhagar? I think the coincidences are striking, not to mention how much foreshadowing we've had with Aemond. Aemond is even shown in episode 10 here removing his eye patch, similarly to his father Viserys back in episode 8. Viserys reveals the face of death, and Aemond does the same. But when Aemond loses control of his dragon, what future can that possibly be foreshadowing? I can only think of one thing that truly connects the dots here, and I cannot wait to see it unfold. Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments below, and be sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell for all the latest videos on House of the Dragon and other amazing shows like Raised by Wolves, The Serpent Queen, and much more. And consider joining my channel memberships by clicking the join button below or joining my Patreon, linked in the description, for exclusive benefits and behind the scenes content. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!